Hi, it's lunchtime on Wednesday. Very busy round here, which is at St Giles, at the St Giles Tailors Cafe. Groups of students coming over from the science area, postgraduates, postdocs, etc. And I'm going to do another What Do People Do video, walking around the city centre, including some of the most atmospheric bits, and just looking at what's going on a typical weekday in term. It's not quite typical actually, because it's getting towards the end of summer term, or Trinity as they call it, and a lot of the students will be taking exams, so we'll see a fair number, I think, dressed in sub-fusk, the dark, the black and white formal colours that university members have to wear on certain occasions. And I said I was outside Taylor's. I was going to buy a coffee here, but I had a disappointment in that they suddenly stopped taking cash. Sorry. And I don't want my bank account cluttered up with details of little transactions like a cappuccino to wake me up. So I think I'm going to go to Just in Time in the market, which I advertised in my Secret Cafes 3 video. I think I put that up yesterday. But let's show the surroundings anyway. It's a bustling lunchtime. I've just seen somebody in academic dress in the black and white go past there, and there'll be others. Some of them will be frantically revising books, phones, or going over material in their head. And I know from experience that some of them will be feeling very, very stressed, especially those doing finals. But even the earlier exams give the tutors and disciplinary officials a guide to whether the student should be allowed to continue the following year. And although that will be okay for most of the examinees, it won't be for everybody. I know somebody who actually got told that she couldn't continue her course because her marks in an exam taken at the beginning of summer term in her second year were so bad. I say bad, but that's bad by Oxford standards. By the standard of the everyday person in the street, they'd be pretty wonderful, I think. Mark had to be 60% or greater for her to continue, and I think she only got 50. So out it was. There are some more students in Suffolk. Note the flowers, which most of them wear in their buttonholes. This is St Giles. I featured St Giles in a spring walk video where I looked at the trees coming into leaf, and they're now fully in leaf. This is summer growth. You can't really see the patterns of the branches anymore as you could earlier on. There's somebody else enjoying the roses.
Definitely, like, there's more variability. Like, sometimes they're amazing, and then sometimes they're, like, unsatisfactory in some way.
Now, some people, probably not very many, may recall the following verse about a well-known brand of milk. Carnation milk, a can in my hand. Carnation milk, the best in the land. No teats to pull, no hay to pitch, just punch a hole in the son of a bitch. And that, I read that once in a Spectator or New Statesman literary competition. They used to have those competitions at the back of the magazine in every issue. And I'm not sure now whether this was a parody. I imagine it must have been a parody, because I can't think that the makers of Carnation would actually advertise like that. But in any case, it's always stuck in my mind. And I mention it just as a way of introducing the subject of carnation, which is a sort of sweet and sticky and very gooey so-called condensed milk that comes in a tin or can. And I mention that because, as I say, it's the tradition for examinees here to wear flowers in their buttonholes. And some people take that to a punning extreme by wearing cans of carnation rather than real carnations in their buttonholes. Not very many, but I have seen it. Somebody once wrote about Oxford's air of ponderous antiquity, and you can see what they mean when you walk along walls like this. Now, I do not think these are examinees. I think they are tourists, and they've probably come from one of those coaches. You always get 3 or 4 coaches parking outside here in St Giles at this time of year.
Officer, this is the one who kicked me last week.
Hi. That's an interesting question.
There's a crime novel that I once read set in Cambridge where the protagonist talks about the Challenger tank mentality needed to make one's way through the city streets. Just put your head down and bulldoze, and that applies equally well to Oxford.
I really hated it, but
I was debating whether to go down Friar's Entry or past the Ashmolean, so let's do the Ashmolean and some more ponderous antiquity. They are doing, and have been doing for months, huge amounts of renovation, and possibly more than just renovation, in Beaumont Street. That's St John's Street, which is less busy. And I said I was going to look at some of the atmospheric bits of Oxford. This is not atmospheric in the conventional sense, but it's certainly bustling, and it's certainly occupied with lunchtime activities. There's a very big vegetable stall here. You have to be a little bit careful because almost everything, at least the fruit, is in those bowls. And you have to take an entire bowl, and they don't like you picking through the bowls to select the best specimens, which tells me immediately, at any rate, that the specimens at the bottom are perhaps not so good. You've got the restaurants that are here anyway. Then you've got mostly up this end. On Wednesdays we have the very big vegetable stall, and the other stalls are a mixture of food and things like jewellery. This is a welcome return. I've talked before about how difficult it is to get decent bread in Oxford. You saw me in a video about the Headington open air market buying bread from cornfields. There used to be several bakeries that came here, but they've stopped, sometimes because the people who ran them were too busy, or in one case was moving back to Italy or somewhere. The Heritage Bakery, I think, is from Witney, and their stuff is very nice and it's worth patronising. I think they're just here on Wednesdays. Hi, I'm just introducing people to your goodies.
Oh, thank you, sir.
I have bought stuff from you, and I'm just saying how good it is to have a proper bakery here again.
Cheers. I appreciate that a lot.
You're Witney, aren't you?
Well, we do have a shop in Whitney, but our bakery is based in Wantage.
Wantage. Okay, thanks very much. May I just do the labels? I'll keep you out of shot.
That's instead of eating the monster.
Sorry?
Isn't it? You can eat the picture instead of having to buy the food.
Well,
I
I
was
can...
mowing the coat and then I realised it had to be you.
Thank you.
Behind it. Anyway, glad to see you.
And you. So, there's a demonstration of what they sell, and the lady just said that the bakery is actually in Wantage, which is a market town. How far is Wantage from here?
If traffic is not too bad, it's like 35-40 minutes drive.
Right, 35-40 minutes drive from here. Thanks very much. Then there's another veg stall which is the same sort of thing and does the same tricks with bowls over there. And then there are various fabrics, stones. Mediterranean things, olives. And if you stand by the fruit stall, vegetable stall, for any length of time, you'll hear them shouting, "Ooh, lovely plums," sort of thing. And I discovered when I was living in Athens that is not purely English or British behaviour. The Greek market traders did the same sort of thing, but of course in a different language. "Ene katostariko," which my tutor explained to me was an old word for 100. 100, whatever the basic unit of currency piece was, 100 drachma. 100 drachmas, I suppose, 100 drachmas. In a ekato, 100 stariko.
Hello, boys. I know what that is.
And I'm going to get myself a coffee because Justin doesn't insist that people pay with a bank card. Hi, are you in the queue?
No, you go. We're just waiting.
Once again, thank you very much. See you in a bit.
Right. Yeah, can I have a macchiato in there?
And cappuccino for you.
Yes. I put up the video where I was advertising you and Janos.
How many videos do you have now in total on your channel?
Sorry?
How many videos do you have in total on your
276.
That's substantial.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry. No. Just more to handle. Thanks. There's the Hungarian goulash stall, which I advertised also in the Secret Cafes 3 when I did Justin. And there are loads of other food stalls too. And quite a lot of them do vegan or vegetarian options, which tends to be more to my taste than something with a lot of meat. And you can see how busy it is just by looking down the aisle. They're actually a bit more organised here, the LSD, the market company, than it used to be, and they've put up this aisle of kiosks or marquees or whatever you call them all the way along, with plenty of seats. That's the Greek gyros stall, which always brings back good memories with its music. That's Dorothy, who does drawings of Oxford's landmarks, colleges and other buildings, and her work is popular. This is George Street. I did a video last year about how horrible George Street is. Because there's more sun at this time of year, the brickwork looks lighter and the street isn't so depressing as it was then, but it still doesn't look as though very much attention is being spent on it. It's got a nice curve to it. The shape of the street itself isn't bad, but is it being cleaned? Are the building owners maintaining their buildings? There's this air of shabbiness, so let's get out of it. This is Bullock's Lane, Bulwarks, and the name, I think, actually came from Bullock, and it was somebody's name, somebody who worked around here as a scavenger, which was somebody who picked up waste from the streets, and I think eventually built or at least owned a cottage round here. Contrary to what some people might think, Most of Oxford is not ancient, twisty, cobbled streets, but there are one or two. This is the new Westgate shopping centre, built 2017. This is the entrance aisle to the new Westgate, and to anybody who says there isn't a lot of money in the British economy, well, this place is always bustling. It's always full, and people must be doing something here, and I presume it's buying things, and they must be getting the money for that from somewhere. That's a dreadful pun. Busk stop. Sainsbury's was here from the previous Westgate shopping centre. This part hasn't been rebuilt, and the shop always feels a little bit out on a limb, as though the new Westgate didn't really want it. This will be another one of those big pavement renovations like the one they did outside Taylor's. This is Bond Square, and that is another busker, very different in style from the one we saw in the Westgate. It's Richard, Oxford's own Mr. Shouty. Thank you very much. Thank you. She was just saying that I had a beautiful garment on, and it's this that she was talking about. I think it is quite spectacular. Well, that's the high street down there. That's Corn Market, and that is the centre of Oxford, Carfax Tower. That appears to be the smokers' spot for town hall staff. And here Oxford begins looking more medieval and more atmospheric if you neglect some of the last century's concrete horrors. Notice how well the slate goes with the clouds. And those people, OG stonemasonry, I mentioned before when they told me what was happening with the demolition in Pusey Street last year, where some blocks of flats along the side of the Oriental Institute were being demolished. That was one of their vans. And they're some of the people who keep Oxford looking medieval, even if they're doing so with the latest building tools.
Well, maybe I'll feel better if I rest. Fuck all. It does not work that way. You don't ever feel better. You don't have to do work. Yeah. It's okay, I never have to do my program. No matter what I do with my life. I never have to maximize anything. Ever again. No! I don't have to talk for somebody to make it work.
जाएंगे सही बंदा रहा है
Sweet. As with Bullock's Lane, this is what some outsiders think all of Oxford looks like. Well, it doesn't. No, that's rather splendid. Now, somebody told me that I should say more about the examination schools, which I passed in a previous video without saying very much about them. So I'll just say that to most of the students here, it's possible that Boris Johnson was an exception. They're the most feared building in Oxford. Or they, together with some other buildings, since not all of the exams are held there. There isn't room. And, well, this is obviously very heavy use of the examination schools. There must be a lot of different exams going on in that building.
Wallpaper. Into it. Into it.
Stand apart, please.
And, well, it wasn't like this when I did finals. It looks more stringent now. We certainly didn't have the university security staff, which is what those people in the yellow jackets are. And I'm not sure what they're protecting against. It could be several things. It could be protesters wanting to damage a striking building. It could be attempted, well, surely not theft of exam scripts or copying of results. Other attempts at disruption? I don't know whether anything has been announced. It's a little bit too early for trashing, as it's called, which is when students come out of schools and celebrate by pouring noxious substances over each other and drinking loads of champagne. The university used to get really fed up with that, largely because the council and local businesses also got fed up with it, with the bother of having to clean up after it. And trashing is now rigorously banned. In a video that I did about eating nettles and how to cook them, I went for a walk along Willow Walk, which is at the south edge of Port Meadow, and as I was, so just after I was entering it, a little bit before I was entering it too, a group of students were sitting round on the grass and asked me not to video them for fear of that they might be suspected of trashing. As far as I could tell, they were well out of the way of doing any damage, and all they were doing was drinking, so there wasn't any harm. But it shows how much people worry about it. And the security staff are shouting instructions to students to go down into particular bits of the building or along particular paths. Notice the buttonholes, carnations, but I don't see anyone with a can of carnation hanging from their jacket. And you get here ample demonstration of what university academic dress is. So what was I saying when I came round the corner of that cobbled street, Merton Street? I was saying that one of the commenters who'd watched a video about the high street that I did said that I'd passed the exam schools but not said very much about it. And he mentioned its role as a stress centre. And it undoubtedly is a stress centre to most students. The amount of work that you have to do to get a decent degree is, for most people, intense. At least one essay a week, possibly lab practicals as well if you're a scientist. Lots of lectures to attend. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of students don't assimilate the material properly because they don't have time to do so. You need time to sleep on stuff and try it in combinations with other bits of the subject and to play with it. And it's very difficult to get that here. I say as somebody who has taught Oxford students, there just isn't time. It's especially difficult for people who come from backgrounds where they're not used to handling that sort of material and thinking about it in that way. That just adds to the stress, of course.
If you go to the other end, just to the right, pavement, okay?
For some people, there'll also be the stress of knowing that a future career will depend on the outcome of their exams. This is not so far from where I was standing on May morning. My gosh, there are even more of them around here. I can see one of them looking at my coat because it's considerably more splendid than any academic gown that she might be wearing. They don't make academic gowns in gold, as far as I know. One thing that I have seen that not many people have seen, I think, is the exam schools being used as stables. And I have one video where there were horses being stabled in the quadrangle at the back. I don't think many people can say that. Something else. The exam schools deserve to be more famous than perhaps they were. I believe Tolkien invigilated here. That is, he sat and watched the exams while he sat and watched students while they were taking exams to make sure that they didn't do anything illegal like copying each other's exam papers. And while doing so, allegedly, he composed a famous poem called Mythopoeia, in which he writes about the value of myth and the truths that myth can convey, even though it's usually about fictional subjects, Greek gods and such like, or Tolkien's world, also fictional. And I will say more about that. I'll analyse the poem in another video. Well, I remember once standing here, looking out towards Carfax and feeling that the portion of the high street in front of me, all the way up to Carfax, was somehow analogous to the weight of knowledge that I had to absorb to do well in finals. Stress gets you like that. Okay, well, no cobbles, but we have another twisty medieval bit coming up. This is New College Lane. So here's a little more of one of Oxford's few twisty medieval bits. This is the back entrance to New College. And it was new once, because that's how time works. Everything is new once, but it isn't new anymore. This is the house of Sir Edmund Halley, the Halley's Comet guy.
He didn't live to witness the comet's return. He went lit up the skies again. That's it.
This is the Bridge of Sighs, where there are invariably tourists photographing each other and it. This is the end of Cat Street, and I'm coming on to South Parks Road, which will lead to the science area. I think last time I passed that, the grounds of the Sheldonian and the Old Bodleian was during a degree ceremony, and the university authorities, the Bulldogs, were rigorously keeping everybody who wasn't graduating out. And I'm now going to walk up and down Cat Street. I did this as a student once. Well, I did it more than once, but I was very struck by the the beauty of the arrangement as I walked down and various buildings came into view on my right. A little bit harder to recapture that today because of the lorries. No, I can't say it works quite so well. The Hertford Library construction project is getting in the way. I wonder why building or renovating a library requires them to dig up all of the Radcliffe Camera grounds as well. I'll ask about that sometime, but not at the moment because they're busy trying to manoeuvre. I'll go round through the Bodleian Quad.
Wait, is this all the light?
Oh, I've got a med.
One of them saying to the other, "I've got so much wasted paper." Benefactors of the university. There's a lot.
It was printed by the Oxford University Press, okay? Not in this building, but further out. Fast forward, the press gets too big for its boots, and this becomes a ceremonial entrance into the university. But back to the Bibles for a moment. The Bibles were used throughout the world as part of Britain's colonial character. It was one building that represented
Okay, well there's a few guys celebrating. I presume they had exams this morning. This is Holywell Street.
Did you have that thing where when you were walking back from exam school, every single tourist was staring at you?
Yeah, but I felt good about it.
I did not. I was like, really looking at me.
Oh, also, did you not find the desk extremely small?
Yes. Well, I had to keep like I couldn't. There was no space that I could use the paper.
I know. No.
I had to just stop thinking and then be like holding it, and I was like writing like that.
Those two are talking about how extremely small the desks they had to use in the examination schools were. This, like Taylor's, is a favourite lunch stop.
Look how upset he looks.
This is the road I walked up when I went to the White Hart in Headington. There's still quite a long way to go from here, but the next stage was to go through the university parks to New Marston and then cross and go towards Cuckoo Lane. Well, Oxford City Council like to advertise that Oxford is a cycling city. They've got that on various signs, including, I think, some of the city boundary markers. I prefer to think that Oxford is a walking city because more people can walk than can cycle. But Oxford is also very much a working city, and that's the sort of thing that tends to get hidden away and not discussed by the tour guides. What we have here is various stages in the development of the organic chemistry laboratory. That, I believe, was the original. That was a later bit. That lecture theatre once stood alone on legs, but has since been filled in from underneath. That's physical chemistry. Physical chemistry deals with things like solutions, what happens when you pass electricity through liquids, electroplating, heat, the rate at which reactions go and so on. Organic chemistry deals with carbon and, generally speaking, the compounds that living things make. And I think there's more organic chemistry somewhere. These cluster of buildings used to be the latest word, but I believe there's more, possibly on the other side. So there'll be a lot of work going on here, and a lot of it will be frustrating. There'll be undergraduates learning how to crystallize stuff, how to, once you've made a compound, how to make it come out of solution into nice clear crystals, because that's one way, partly of demonstrating that you've actually got what you wanted to make, and partly of purifying it. And crystallization itself is a complicated art to get right. More generally, there's a huge amount of time devoted to organic synthesis, which is the subject of how to make a compound. Given that you want to make a certain chemical compound, what do you start with? And how do you react the starting materials to make them produce what you want without producing loads of gunk, usually goo or tar, that you don't want? And by the way, that doesn't explode. And this is experiment, and nature doesn't give up its secrets easily, as any number of scientists have noted. So it can be very, very frustrating and expensive. That's the back of the University Museum. One of the commenters, we've been talking about it a bit in the comments, one of the commenters spent a lot of time seeing behind the department, as it were. And one of the things the museum is devoted to is looking after its collection and making sure that it doesn't rot or get eaten by insects or otherwise decay. And then there's more sort of psychological, media-oriented entertainment stuff about how you present the collection in the best way to teach what you want to teach. There's a whole subject, believe it or not, called museology, which is the theory of museums. You can think of a museum as like a sort of three-dimensional book with only a few words in it, where the words are the exhibits that you happen to have been given, probably by some colonialist explorer in the mid-19th century. So you've landed with these things, you've got to keep them in working order or viewable order, and you've got to teach something sensible with them while not outraging people's sensitivities about British Empire and British colonialism. How do you do it? Cardiac science, well, everybody knows how important it is to keep the heart in working order. And there are people doing this stuff every day. There are people who've been doing it for 40 years. There are people outside the stress centre in the high street who are hoping to do it if they get good enough degrees, or who are worried because they've realised that they may not be good enough to do it, or they may not, or they may want to do it, but they don't seem to have the right thinking skills or attention span or whatever. That's part of the stress of taking exams. Indeed, it's part of the stress of working in this sort of place generally. And I invite... No, I think I'll do this as a video. Come back to that later. Okay, so there's physiology, and that's another aspect of medicine and how the body works. Physiology, anatomy, and genetics. I haven't talked about physics because that's around the other end of the science area, near the front of the Natural History Museum. But there's that too, which covers everything from heat transfer to subatomic particles, the Higgs boson, and quantum theory, and even impinges on the origin of the universe. And of course how to make efficient chips. And as I say, there are people working here every day in these rather horrible buildings, trying to get things right and worried about how to test whether their last experiment has worked, or whether their last synthesis has worked, or whether the research paper that they just read was actually truthful, in that if they follow its instructions, will they get what it says they should get? And sometimes you don't, because there's a big business. If you know programs like ChatGPT and the other so-called AI programs, you can very easily ask them to write anything you want, and there's a big business in fake scientific papers which are written by AI programs. Because the thing you have to do when you're a scientist, or one of the things you have to do, is to publish a number of good papers. It's what your living in the university depends on. And there are certain people, or sad to say countries, who are not too scrupulous about this, and who will fake research papers to up their publication record. And with programs like ChatGPT, that has become very easy to do. And they don't always get detected in time, so other people read those research papers and get misled into thinking that they're telling the truth. So what I've given you is a quick sort of shot of behind the scenes at the university. Stuff that doesn't get mentioned much in the official guides. And then, of course, you have all the other subjects that I've not touched on, such as history. And there you have questions like, what does it mean to make a historical explanation when you say that World War I happened because of A, B and C? What sort of A, B and C are you really interested in? It can't be just a list of all the facts that you think led to its cause, because that would probably include everything down to subatomic collisions. So there's a whole branch of philosophy behind history. And that nowadays also impinges on psychology, because the human mind seems to prefer some kinds of explanation to others. So you find yourself looking at what constitutes a good explanation, not from the viewpoint of philosophy now, but from the viewpoint of psychology. Why does the mind like certain kinds of explanations and not other kinds? And then that hits computer science, because machine learning programs that learn general rules from databases full of facts have to explain why they learnt something. And so they also hit the psychology of explanation. What's a good explanation to output and what isn't? And sometimes it all gets too much and you go for a walk around the parks. To be honest, the parks is a bit near at hand for me. I generally find that I have to walk for about 3 hours before it really feels satisfactory. I just heard somebody talking about nanowire, which is what I would call nanowire in my English accent, and is made by, well, possibly even moving individual atoms or molecules around to fabricate very, very small wires for use in computer chips and the like. Part of science. It's not working on your own, it's meeting colleagues, maybe from far away, and swapping ideas and collaborating. Now, I mentioned organic synthesis and organic chemistry and the organic chemistry lab. One of the exercises that students had to do there, and maybe still do, was to synthesize something challenging but not too difficult, and as part of their assessment, hand in the crystals that their final crystallization of it produced. And these can be assessed by looking at them, in part because it's very easy to tell impure, dirty, bitty crystals from nice, pure, shiny ones. And I believe one of the people whose crystals still repose in the organic chemistry lab was Maggie Thatcher, because she did a degree at Oxford, Somerville, I think, and her degree was in chemistry, and she had to go through the organic chemistry teaching of learning how to crystallize stuff, and I think they still have her samples. So the Prime Minister, the ex-Prime Minister's crystals are in Oxford. May not mean much to everyone, but it does mean something. something else that happens all over Oxford but perhaps tourists don't see all that much of is the huge amounts of maintenance that go on for parks, gardens, stonework, I've mentioned already, other building, lab machinery. Good, and this is where I wanted to end. I'm standing on the Rainbow Bridge looking at punts on the Cherwell.
How are you not pulled in every direction?
So this is looking south down the Cherwell in the University Parks. See you next time.